Troy Koerntjes, welcome to Forged in Fire podcast. Troy is the owner of Complete Health Geelong, which is a mental health and disability provider in northern suburbs. I met a little while ago. We thought it'd be great to have Troy on. So, let's go. Troy, tell us a little bit about your background. Welcome.
Hey guys. I suppose everybody always wants to sort of hear is that, I was my next bikie. I was in an outlaw motorcycle club for 5 years, and before that I was in other motorbike clubs for probably 5 years as well. Now I'm the founder of Complete Health Geelong. We do counselling, mental health, disability. We've got 7 different support groups. We do close quarter combat. So throughout the years I've done a lot of craft, boxing, especially kickboxing in Thailand, and I've just sort of blended them all. I started doing karate when I was 6. So I've just sort of blended all of that in to make close quarter combat. And I've done a lot of training in a lot of different sort of close quarters, hand-to-hand stuff. And specifically sort of street self-defense, but I like to make it a little bit more fun to train because some of that stuff isn't sort of fun to train. So I sort of make it very heavy on the kickboxing side of things. Yeah, awesome. Thai style things, yeah.
Cool. So Complete Health's going really well. You're just around the corner. You've recently set up a gym.
Yeah.
You do run all sorts of programs. So how did you end up going from being a outlaw biker to running this program?
Yeah, well, so it was a bit of a journey. So I was at work and I just stepped off a forklift and I felt a sharp pain shoot up my back. And I went and got that checked out. It turns out I'd done 5 discs in my back. So I sort of started spiraling a little bit during that time, and I was in the perfect place to do that. So I had lots of drugs and all this sort of stuff at my disposal. And then I just started partying full time as I was on workers' comp and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then after that, it actually wasn't long after that, I was walking and I hyperextended my leg. Well, actually I was running in sand shoes and my leg shot through the back of my hip and just shattered the back of my hip out. So I ended up needing a hip replacement. So I couldn't walk for pretty much a whole year. I had to progress at 10% more weight every couple of months. So if there was a whole 3 months, I was in bed. I couldn't do anything. And of course, that led to more spiraling. And because I used to train so much, I was still eating, 4,500 calories. So I just stacked on the weight. And during that time, I met a really abusive partner who just absolutely destroyed me at the time. Yeah. Come under the banner of I can help you and all this sort of thing. So when you're feeling that low, you'll sort of attach to anything, that you think is going to help you. And then my brother died. And this was actually the good part. During this time, work cover sent me to see a psychologist to see if I was, faking all my mental health stuff. And as it turns out, I wasn't. And so they put me in pretty intense sessions, sometimes twice a week. So, and that went for actually pretty much nearly 5 years. I saw a psychologist at least once a week, and that was absolutely life-changing. Best thing that ever happened to me. So then I started getting value for myself and all this sort of stuff. I started working on identity and self-worth and all this sort of thing. The abusive relationship come to an end. I had a mental breakdown, ended up in hospital because I was too strong for too long. You know, the body just shut down. And then it just became a process of rebuilding everything. And when you're under a lot of stress, like being in an abusive relationship and putting your body through so much stuff due to partying and all that sort of stuff, your body's dumping cortisol and all these crazy chemicals into your body. And I was on a cane for nearly 2 years, you know, that sort of thing. I couldn't drive for a long time just because my body was so inflamed and I was in so much pain. A week after I ended the abusive relationship, I didn't need a cane anymore. It was absolutely life-changing. And then because I was working on all my identity and all my own issues from childhood and stuff like that, I no longer needed the club life anymore. Yeah. And I woke up one day and I was just like, you know what? I don't want to do drugs anymore. It was interesting. Like, everyone thinks drugs are the problem, but it's not. It's the reason why you do drugs. That's the problem. Yeah. And then during that time, I'd actually started studying counselling. So I finished my counselling course, and on my last day of the course, I got offered to do a traineeship in drug and alcohol. So I went and did that. And then, then I had a few qualifications, and I was just a trauma nerd. I was studying flat out because I just had this mental breakdown, and I wanted to know what was wrong with me, and I couldn't sleep because of all the stress and everything like that. I just studied 24/7. There was some weeks there I was sleeping an hour a night, and I was just studying 23 hours a day. And I ended up just smashing out a heap of courses in the space of a couple of years, and all the boys were like, you know, how are you going to do this sort of work and be in the club at the same time? And I was just like, it'll be right, I'll manage. Yeah. And then it come to a point where in the traineeship, there was a guy there who was on lifelong parole. Yeah. And one of the few people in Australia that's on life parole. And because I was still in an outlaw motorcycle club, we couldn't be in the same room together. Yeah. So, and we both had like the same level as well. So obviously we had to work together sometimes. Yeah. And if that happened, we both could go to jail for those new assaulting laws and stuff. So I was like, this just isn't going to work. And it was going to start restricting where I was going to go with this career. Yeah. So I told the boys in the club, and they said, who would we be to stand in what sort of brothers would we be to stand in the way of you bettering yourself? That's word for word what they said to me. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And so they let me out, good standings, you know, not an issue. And
Can you explain what that means? Good standing and bad standing and stuff?
Yeah. So bad standing is, you know, in a lot of cases you'll lose your bike, and if they see you anywhere, you know, it's probably not going to be a good situation. Yeah. Whereas I can still go hang out if I want. I can still talk to any of them and all this sort of. Basically, bad standings, you're just completely ostracized.
Good standing, you've got their blessing to just move on.
Yeah. And the reason I never mentioned which club I was in is that's always one of the first questions I get asked, is because I do a lot of work with people coming out of jail and stuff like that. So if I mentioned on here, if somebody was thinking about coming to work with me and I tell them what club I was in and they were in a different club, that may stop them from coming to see me. Yes. Whereas it doesn't matter at all. No. So I don't want to jade anybody, I guess, you know, away from coming and getting help. No. Whereas I do like to use the experience to say, you know, I do know what you've sort of been through, and I've been around the traps. Whereas a lot of the complaints I get is that people are getting, you know, coming out of jail, coming out of clubs, and they're getting stuck with a social worker that's 20 years old and never done anything in their life except yoga. you know, and then they feel like they're getting told what to do by somebody who's got no life experience. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. So you've been doing all these courses. You've exited the club. Yeah. What happens now?
Well, because I lived a pretty stressful life, I actually only wanted to work 15 hours a week. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do counseling. And that's it. I'm going to do 15 hours a week, just chill, live a very stress-free life, not having to look at my phone every 10 minutes or when the phone vibrates going, oh no, what's going on now? Yeah. You know, and within the space of 3 weeks, I was starting to get booked up already, and I was way past my 15 hours.
Yeah.
And I'd started a men's group to train with in the morning, and that's like my pet. That's like my little baby, the men's group.
Yeah.
And then it was a case of, so I was mainly doing abuse coaching, like anybody who'd been through narcissistic relationships and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then people started saying, "Will you work with my kids?" And I was like, "Well, I can't do counselling and stuff with them, but I'd be interested in doing support work and coaching sort of stuff, you know." And next minute, within a couple of months, I was pretty much booked out, and I didn't have time to do my own paperwork anymore and all this sort of stuff. And I had a cousin who had been through a similar thing. He was studying counselling. So I said to him, "Mate, do you want to come and help me do some support work?" And then it's just grown and grown and grown. And now we've got 15 support workers and a facility. So we started in a 1-car garage and went to a 3.5-car garage. Yeah. And now we've got our own gym. Yeah. And we're looking at expanding. We're also working out of Black Dog Box Fit in Hoppers Crossing.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So shout out to Stephen out there. He's a really good bloke. If he's ever want some good boxing training, head out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've talked about doing something MMA wise with, NDIS clients and that sort of thing.
So big
down the track. Hopefully we'll find a suitable venue and
there's a big thing for that at the moment. There's so much bullying going on. That I think it's a really good thing. Like we were talking about, just at least just awareness to like to know where you are on the ground to be able to get back up. I think it's very, very important.
Yeah, I think it's good in a lot of ways. I think with most cultures, historically there was some sort of, particularly for boys, there was a wrestling tradition. Yeah. And we don't really have that now. Yeah. So, and it's in some ways it's like maybe a rite of passage towards part of the journey towards manhood. But I just want to touch on a couple of things you talked about. So, abusive relationship. Not many people talk about the fact that men can be in abusive relationships. Yeah. And, obviously you work with a lot of people that, do you think one of the issues is that men feel like they're a lesser man if they maybe say that they're being abused by their female partner? Or?
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know if you can tell on here, but I'm actually a pretty big guy. Yeah. And I got abused by a girl that was 4'7" and a little Instagram sort of girl, and I was in the club back then. Who would have thought a 6'2", 160 kilo guy at the time was getting abused by this tiny little thing, and but it happens, we get abused mentally.
That's most abuse is psychological rather than physical, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And no man sort of wants to admit that they got abused by somebody like that. Not all abuse is physical. No. And in fact, in most cases, the mental abuse is worse.
Yeah. So I've noted in the last few years there are starting to be like a few more men's groups, and we both actually went to an introduction to another one that a mutual friend of ours, Jamie Hobbs, is just starting at the moment. Yeah. And, I think it's good that those sorts of things are starting to happen, where guys can get together and have a bit of a chat and, without any sort of fear of being put down for discussing, how they felt. So,
yeah, well, that's the whole reason behind my men's group that runs every morning. It's a place where you can come work out, but it's not just a place to work out. It's a place to, if you've got anything coming up, you can have a chat, and there's a counsellor there to, guide the situation. It's not a counselling session. No, I sort of treat it like a DBT course. It's sort of, it teaches you to handle your emotions, but you can also talk about things without feeling the whole amount. So if you picture it like a really sharp knife, if you use it to cut something all the time, it gets blunter and blunter and blunter. It's the same way as if you talk about something that's bothering you, as long as you don't do it in a re-traumatizing way. But if you can, while you're lifting weights, you're not 100% in the emotion. If it's something that's too traumatic for you to talk about, usually you can start slowly cutting away at that trauma and blunting the knife by talking about it until it doesn't bother you anymore. until you can talk about it enough to express the emotion and unpack it, which is why I end up doing the exercise psychotherapy, because what I was finding in a lot of the cases, because anyone who's been in an abusive relationship has been in there because they've been conditioned to it from childhood. In most cases, it's the childhood trauma that gets them into an abusive relationship.
Yeah.
So to unpack that, a lot of people, especially if they've got something like autism or ADHD specifically, they can't sit across from somebody and look them in the eyes because it's too intimidating, or they can't sit still long enough to actually fully get involved in the situation, in the conversation. So I'll do my counseling while I'm holding pads for somebody or giving them a PT session. Yeah. So you can have top down, which is general talking psychology, or bottom up, which is like somatic, all because we know trauma is stored in the body. So we're trying to work it out of the body with all stress chemicals and stuff like that. Yeah. So if we're doing both at the same time, we're technically in a relaxed body, but we're burning off the chemicals at the same time. Plus you get all the feel good endorphins and all the benefits of exercise.
Yeah, for sure.
But you also get to talk about a subject that you might not be able to talk about usually, because you're not 100% focused on it.
Yeah.
And the other thing I find about it is, if you go to a normal psychologist or a counselor, it might take somebody 7 sessions, or however many times it takes to build that therapeutic relationship of trust.
Yeah.
But how many people have played football and after one coaching session, the relationship you've got with that coach, he's your life coach, he's everything, Yeah. There is something about having a coach that it's just an instant trust and connection. So all of a sudden, if I get somebody on the pads, that therapeutic relationship is built up nearly straight away. And it can be done in one session instead of over a very long period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. The other night when I was teaching a class, sort of in the introduction, one of the things that I talked about was that quite often when people have been through a fair bit in life, maybe even just relationship breakups, but definitely with like abusive relationships and that sort of thing, it's very easy to lose the ability to trust.
Yeah. And
it's very easy to lose the ability to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that one of the things that I like about jiu-jitsu, in my case, is that in jiu-jitsu, you need to be able to trust your partner.
Yeah.
That you need to know that, that when you're training, that if you don't tap in time, they're not going to break your arm.
Yeah.
That if you do pass out from a choke, that they're not going to leave the choke on, that they're going to let the choke off, and you're going to be okay. So, it's like, very much so, that trust and vulnerability you can rebuild through other activities like martial arts.
Yeah.
Where, the same with the striking stuff that you do, the guys that you train know that, if you're sparring with them, particularly if they're fairly inexperienced and you're highly experienced, you're not going to knock them out.
Yeah.
You're not going to break their leg. You're not, that you're. So I think it is a good way of, and also learning that, okay, well, I'm going to learn some skills to cope with pressure situations as well.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that, look, that's an important point as well. A lot of people from complex trauma don't like being touched.
No.
Like they hate being touched. There's a lot of people out there that hate being hugged and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this gives you an opportunity to learn how to touch somebody without it being like an emotional sort of connection. And it sort of can help you through that process of, because that's a big trust and vulnerability issue as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's a very good point, because I know I used to be like that myself. Like I never wanted to do jiu-jitsu at the start because I don't like being touched by anyone,
Yeah.
And
we see two jiu-jitsu guys meet in the street, they hug. They don't shake hands, they hug. Like, because we have no personal space really when it comes to our jiu-jitsu relationship.
Yeah. So say it was funny. I was at an event with Brett Ritchie and Christian Doherty, who both experienced martial artists and stuff, and we've all overcome heaps of trauma and stuff like that. And we're at this event and we're all hugging, and they're like hugging each other, get a kiss on the cheek and stuff like that. And we're like, how cool is this? Or like years ago, there is no way any of us would have been doing this.
No,
and
here we are. Exactly. Yeah.
And then we heard this story about this little kid, everyone was tearing up, and I'm like, see, that's what it's about,
Yeah, totally. And then there's all the community stuff that builds around the martial arts, and and I'm sure it's the same with with the Muay Thai community and the craft community or whatever. But I know definitely with the the jiu-jitsu community is and it's growing rapidly, but it's still very much is a community. You're welcome pretty much anywhere. There's very, very few clubs that won't welcome you in with open arms.
Karate's massively like that. Like they're super tight. They're like one big family.
Yeah. So it's there are lots of benefits. So it's interesting to see how you're building your support. Your disability support business is now got martial arts and fitness enmeshed into it, and as a tool, really.
Yeah, well, I took it from there, and I took those same principles that I just spoke about and put them into our groups.
Yeah.
So I was like, how can we get these people really that really don't have any friends, that are getting intimidated and can't look people in the eyes and really can't understand social cues and all this sort of stuff. How can I get them into a group? Because they all have the same problem. They've got no connection, no meaning, no purpose. They're all lonely. And yet none of them want to actually make the effort to get friends because they just can't. And they've been hurt in the past and all this sort of, they're being bullied. So I was like, how can we do this? So I was like, well, what if we make it a really fun activity where they don't have to look at each other, they don't have to do anything except for have fun. So they do a fun activity, but during that activity, they're getting something to bond over. They're getting something to talk about later. And they don't have to touch each other. They don't really have to look at each other. It's all just about doing something as a group that you're still your individual self. And then after that, we do a cooking class. So we do life skills. But the whole point of doing the cooking class is not only to teach them how to cook, but they're also all sharing a barbecue, or two or three sometimes, depending on how many come. They're all looking at the food. They're not looking directly at each other. But they're all talking about the activity before. And then by the time we get to the end, and we've got like an extra 45 minutes left over, they're all running around and playing with each other and wrestling, and which happens a lot, actually. A lot of the boys like that, and they've all gone out and joined Army Cadets. A few of them have gone out and done karate together. Like it's just the foundation of how we do everything. We did a post once about doing a makeup class for girls, and of course, this day and age, we had a lot of people going, "Oh, that's sexist. You're just doing makeup for girls." And I'm like, but everything's got purpose. So the whole idea behind it was not only can we talk about hygiene, we could also get two girls or guys not while looking at each other in the face, doing each other's makeup.
Even if they haven't got direct eye contact, they're nearly there.
It's still getting practice to do that. So everything we do at Complete Health Geelong, there's all thought processes behind everything.
And it's sort of like intimacy skills without being intimate as well.
That's right. And then they can bond over the activity. They can get some nervous laughter out. They can be like, "What? Oh, how do we do that? What did the teacher say?" It's just, and that's how we try and do everything. And in all the groups that we do, we always include mindfulness and gratitude practices and stuff. So they're all very important. And these are all things that I used during my healing days. I used to get a lot of, like, I would never start a group like with a group of men and say, "Hey, look, we're doing some mindfulness." So what I sort of trick everyone into doing it. So we'll do our stand-up stuff, and then I'll be like, "All right, now we're going to do some stretching," but it's really stretching in yoga. But I'm not going to call it yoga. So I'm like, all right. So then we get down to our knees, we start stretching out. We're doing all this sort of stuff. Next minute, I'm like, all right. So we go down to the laying down stretches. So now we're on our back, we're doing our stretches. Then I'm like, now everyone here, I just invite you to close your eyes for a minute and take a deep breath. And then I take them through a series of breathing exercises. Yeah. So now we're doing mindfulness without them realizing.
Yeah, but because you get them to have an awareness of their breath.
Yeah, but they're that tired from training. They're happy to lay there and they've just stretched out. So they're nice and relaxed. So, and so we don't just do guided meditation. No. We do like breathing in, close your hands, breathing out, or turn your head with your breath and stuff like this. So you're still not totally in dead silence thinking about everything. It gives you something external to focus on. And then I'll tell everyone to go write I fill out the gratefulness board, something that you're grateful for, something that makes you happy. Yeah. Because if you're ever thinking one of those things, you can't be depressed. It's actually impossible. Yeah. While you're being grateful, you can't be depressed. And so we've just regulated our emotions. And usually I'll do a little talk on some little topic. And that's one of my favorite ones with the kids is what makes a good friend. A good friend. A lot of people get confused at what's a good friend. And then they'll go sign the board. And the amazing thing is I thought I was always going to have to push the kids to do it. But that's actually their favorite part of the session. After we're breathing in. So after we finish the breathing exercises, I'm like, now guys, you can see how you're so relaxed. Now you can get this at any point in your time. If you're ever getting stressed, angry, whatever, you can get back to this feeling just by breathing and bringing it back. Now go sign out and go fill out the board. They all just take off like rockets. It's really amazing. Yeah, no, it's fabulous.
You also have quite a range of other activities you do with some of the groups, like the younger groups. So I've seen lots of photos of fishing.
Yeah, so we've got a fishing group, we've got a bike riding group, we've got an excursion group and adventure group. So the excursion group's just longer; they get to go and do more things. Yeah. But they get to do paintballing and all sorts of stuff. They're going to Warhammer this week, and they're all painting there because, especially a lot of kids with autism, not to stereotype, but a lot of them are into army stuff. Yeah. So they're going to paint their own armies and stuff like that. Yeah, nice. That's the fun activity. And then they're going to go paint. And then obviously they'll keep their figurines and stuff like that. Yeah. And then we've even got we just released a party group, which is cool. So a lot of groups run during the week, and people with disabilities, just like anybody, they're going to be looking at everybody going out partying on Friday, Saturday nights, and all their groups run during the week. But so of course that's when they're going to be at their loneliest, and they should be able to go out and party too, right? So we get a heap of support workers, and we take this group out. Only 4 hours, and they'll go out to like I think they went to Bev's Bar last week, and then they went and played some pool, stuff like that, and they absolutely love it. They deserve the right to be able to get out and have a party as well. Yeah. So what else have we got? So then we've got a women's group as well. Yeah. And then we've got an ASD group that runs in the gym. So depending on what they want to do, all our groups are pretty self-directed. So if they come in, so that group changes a lot. They'll come in one day, want to work out, then they want to do weights. They'll do weights for 10 minutes and decide they want to do boxing. Then they'll decide they want to do weights again. So we do it sort of like a strength and conditioning class. Because a lot of people with autism can get muscle fatigue very fast and stuff like that. So we just try and cater around that.
So you must have a fair sized client base now. If you've got 15 staff.
Yeah, we're getting pretty big. We've just been asked to do a couple more things, but if you grow too big too fast, you lose sight of what you're doing. So and you've got to. I like to do what we're doing now very well. And that's how everybody should be. You want to do what you do extremely well before you start looking at something else.
Rather than going off and starting a new thing, it would be nice if you could just sort of expand into the shop next door and grow the gym or something.
Well, that's definitely on the cards. That's actually, we're talking about that over the weekend. So
and one of the other things I found interesting about Complete Health is that you've actually gone in somewhere that maybe a lot of businesses would have avoided. So you've gone into an old shopping strip in a what could be considered a fairly depressed area, and a shopping strip that's been let go, that 40 years ago was the hub of this part of Norlane.
Yeah, well, I heard it was. Yeah, I heard it really was.
Yeah, I have a friend whose grandma lived in Waitara Grove around the corner, and and he said that there was everything there. A little supermarket and newsagents and a chemist, and it was the hub of the community. Whereas obviously nowadays we have big shopping centres. But I think it's great that you've gone in to that area as well, which there would be quite a lot of clients around here, I would imagine, and rather than making them go to the city or out to Corio Village or something, you've come into and created something that adds to the community as well.
Yeah, it's really funny because pretty much anybody that I spoke to, business orientated, like mentors that I've got and stuff, they all advise not doing it where I did it.
Yeah,
but I had to have it there. That's where I wanted it from the start. And I don't know, I just had a feeling about it, and everything was telling me, like you said, like this is the low socioeconomic area. This is the place that needs the help. And I originally wanted it in Lebanon Square, and everybody was no way, don't put it there. And it would have been there. It's just I couldn't get a shop. And nobody would answer me and stuff like that. And me and my partner literally, and I mean this literally, drove up and down. We spent a few weeks driving up and down every little back street in Geelong, every single place where I thought that there'd be a little warehouse or a shop, or I actually found a lot of little places with lots of little shops that I never knew even existed, but we couldn't find anywhere. And I always wanted here. And it was the last day. I was about ready to give up. And I was walking past the shops, and I just ducked my head into the Chinese shop in Alcora Avenue. And I was like, you guys don't want to sell, do you? And they're like, yeah, we do. So I was like, come back full circle. And I love the full circle thing. So with the men's group, again, it always comes back to the men's group, that foundation. I started coaching boxing when I was 18 at this gym called Boxing Fit. It was in Hoppers Crossing and High Point. And one of the guys started coming to this men's group, and we were on the pads one day, and I was like, oh shit, you're a pretty handy boxer. He's like, yeah, I used to fight and stuff like that. And he's like, I'm actually a coach. And I was like, oh, where do you coach? And he's like, at Boxing Fit in Hoppers Crossing. And I was like, wow, that was my first ever like professional teaching job. And so we got talking about that, and a few months went by, and then he came in one day and said, I'm buying it. And I was like, wow, that's cool. I was like, so cool, we'll collaborate and do some stuff and all that. And then just when I was about, like, I knew that I was moving, I asked him if he knew anywhere where I could get some good equipment, at a fairly good price and stuff. And he goes, well, we're rebranding the gym. How about I sell you all the stuff from our gym really cheap? And I was just like, that'd be awesome. So
that's where all the bags came from.
All the bags I used to teach on when I was 18. So that's just one of those full circle things that I thought it's awesome.
It's nice, isn't it?
So I was like, I can't not, as soon as he said, do you want the bags in? I was like, I cannot not have them.
So the business, so obviously you've got the gym, you're running programs out of there. I guess you've also got the capacity there because you've still got the old kitchen from the Chinese restaurant in there as well with all the wok burners and everything. So. Yeah,
we're just fighting with insurance at the moment. They want to charge us a squillion. As soon as you mention woks or fryers, the insurance is through the...
Woks are open flame, aren't they?
Yeah, and we only want to do a cooking class. So for one cooking class a week, it's not really enough, even though we're going to do a heap of food. So there's a lot of businesses out there doing end-to-end stuff, and they just got them making carbonaras and just super basic stuff, like and we don't do anything like any other companies. So we've got a chef. He's actually our general manager, and we wouldn't be where we are now if it wasn't for him. And
so who's that?
Michael.
Michael
Nation. So if you ever call in, he's the one you're probably going to be talking to. And my partner's Thai, so she's a fantastic cook. So we wanted to get him actually making some really good food, instead of just this basic stuff over and over and over again. And so we're still fighting with him to see how we can do this. So I think we're going to outgrow this gym pretty quick. So then we'll be looking to get a bigger warehouse and set up, a really professional studio. And then we'll put this one back to being a restaurant, and we'll host talks and stuff there. So it'll be available to rent. And then we're going to make it so that people can come in and do their Cert 3 and 4. People with disabilities, they can come in and and do their 3 and 4 in food or
commercial cookery,
stuff like that. That'll be the idea. And the next place so we're running out of hoppers now too. There's a few talks in the works about us expanding to South Australia and stuff like that.
I saw that. What's the go? Was that?
Yeah,
I get the impression that you're talking about outback South Australia.
Yeah, stuff like that. I can't go into too much about that one just yet.
Yeah, okay.
But we are definitely going to be in Thailand very soon. So
So you said something about that last time I spoke to you. So what would you like to see happening in Thailand?
Well, so I lived in Thailand for 3.5 years doing kickboxing and stuff like that, and I met my partner over here, and we're always flying backwards and forwards, and we're just like we're sort of in a position now where, thanks to Michael and Chris, my HR manager, and actually all my workers, they're all fantastic. They're quite capable of taking on everything, and they have now. I'm out doing stuff like this. Yeah. So I was like, well, I can do this from Thailand and fly in and out. So so what we're thinking is doing Complete Health Geelong, Thailand, because there's a lot of expats over there that obviously can't talk Thai, so they're not going to a Thai psychologist. And there's no real counsellors or help over there. Yeah. So, and there's actually a thing is that's not supposed to be talked about. It's called the High Flyers Club. A lot of people go to Thailand with a couple of $100,000 and think they're retiring for life, and they blow it in the first year, and they can't come back to living the way they used to. They're embarrassed, they're ashamed, and so they call it the High Flyers Club because they commit suicide jumping off the buildings and stuff. And because they're over there, they just drink every day. A lot of them get ripped off, so and they just can't cope. So my idea is to start over there with the men's group. Yeah. Get the men's group going, offer some counselling and stuff to people that want it, and basically build up exactly the way we did here. Except the extra idea is that people on endo-S plans here, they're not really allowed, like they can't buy flights and stuff like that. Yeah. But let's say somebody's got 10 hours of support work a week to help them achieve their goals here. Yeah. Well, what if we could have sort of not a rehab, but a mental health facility where they can fly over and get 40 hours of support work for that week for the same price they can get 10 here. Yeah. So we can do an intensive month, 2, 3, 6 months course for them where they get up every morning, they learn to cook their own breakfast, they have to train, then they go and do some yoga, then they go and do some journaling and meditation, then they do an afternoon session. So it's basically a kickboxing camp with a counseling experience on top and mindful meditation. So it's full mind and body. I don't want to call it a rehab because it's not, because I really want it to be aimed at when you go through an abusive relationship. I can't remember the stats exactly, but 80% of people get into another one. They don't heal from it properly until they do, and a lot of them don't. It's like another 10% will commit suicide after it just because of the mental breakdown. And then there's some more things in between, but only like 2 or 3% like really recover. Yeah. And unless you've been through it, you just cannot explain how painful it is. So, and that's always that's still a big passion of mine. So I'd like to offer it open to the world where you can come and get your life back and get a full mind and body transformation. You can work through all your childhood trauma instead of it taking years where it may not even fully recover from. Yeah, you can come here, do an intensive for 6 to 3 months, and just absolutely just change everything about yourself. Yeah, and I guess that would, to do it here, the price would just be absolutely prohibitive, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's right. Whereas to do it in Thailand, the cost of so many things is and my partner, she's already got a fair bit of land over there. Yeah. So we're actually looking at what we're going to build on it now. So we're looking, do we do little like huts, but like really cool huts, or do we do like, I originally started training at Fairtex in Bangplee, which sadly isn't there anymore. Oh, really? They still make the clothes, but I actually wanted to go back this trip just for a bit of nostalgia. But
they closed the gym.
Yeah, they closed the gym, but no idea why. Yeah. Most of you know who Yachts and Clay is, and with the first trip I went, he was just this little young kid. Yeah. I've got photos with him as a young kid training there. Yeah. But they're all in Pattaya now. But Yeah, I always wanted to go back there. So, and I loved the way they had it set up. They just had like just two big rows of rooms, and then the gym, all the rings were in the middle, and then there was a pool, and it was just so well done. And so I'm thinking that's what we're going to do. And her home is Bungkung Lung, and there's this massive river, lake that runs around it. They've actually made some like fake beaches, and stuff in there. It's nice. A really cool place, and there's these real famous mountains to climb. Two of them you need to buy insurance at the bottom of the bottom of the hill before you go up it. So the idea is that a lot of these people aren't people that are going to think that they can achieve something like taking a 6-hour hike up a building that's nearly dead, hill that's nearly dead straight. So the idea is to every single week we do the training, get them fitter and fitter and fitter, work on some mindset. And then every Sunday. So the idea is that we take them up these, challenges. They're not always going to be a big hill. And it's right next to the Mekong River too. So there was one there where we went and had a look. The guy had those, this is out in the absolute middle of nowhere. We were just riding around on the scooter, just because I like to do that. He had these glamping tents, right on the Mekong River, and he had a fire. And so it'll be going there, just getting out of everyone's comfort zones and just seeing some stuff. And then one of them is walking up. So not all the hills are that extreme, but there's a couple of them that are. And then there's just some really cool things to see, but you have to work to get there. So it teaches people, that shows that if you're willing to put in the effort, you can get somewhere really good.
So is it quite rural? So if it's on the Mekong River, it's sort of nearly bordering Vietnam.
Yeah, I was the only white fellow there in the whole town, and I thought I was going to be really bored, but it was so good.
You wouldn't say that.
No, not at all. But it was just because I'm so busy here. It was really, really nice not to actually have to talk to anybody. And I can talk a little bit of Thai, so when I go to the market and because it is rural, nobody out there can speak English. So you get there, they'd all be like, you can see them panic as soon as you walk up. But then all of a sudden I can talk enough Thai to order my food and that. Then they all love it and stuff. And then you go off again, but you don't have to have a heap of just conversations and stuff. It was nice to be able to shut down. And there's no bars. There was not one bar in the whole town. So I think that's a really good point too. So if you want to party and train, you can go to them other places. But if you really, but if you really want to work on yourself, you can come here with no distractions. I mean, you can get a scooter and you can ride around all the town all you want, but you're not finding a bar.
That's interesting. So obviously, bars really aren't part of their culture. They're something that's introduced for tourists, really.
Yeah. I think so. So they do have their own Thai whiskey, which will blow your head off. But I think it's a lot more ceremonial. That's why I've got these on here. This was a welcome home ceremony that they did for me. It was absolutely beautiful. And I'm supposed to have these off, but I feel like it's bad luck if I cut them off because they're off my partner's family and stuff. So I did have a couple of shots then with the elders in the family. But no one was getting blind drunk or anything.
No. No, that's very much a Western thing, I think. Oh, so when do you think you could end up in Thailand?
If I could keep my ADHD at bay, it could be a lot sooner than later. I'm hoping sort of within the next 2 years. Probably awesome. Within a year. I could do it. I could start really doing it now if I felt like it. There's just a few goals that I want to click off, just check off here first. I've got a couple of plans. So my dream's always been to travel the world and do martial arts in its own country. The whole reason I traveled to Thailand in the first place is I was miserable with life. I absolutely hated myself. And I was sitting at this old computer once, the last person in school to get a computer, pretty poor. And we had this broken down big box of a thing. And I was sitting there waiting for it to load. And this is back when you had to read magazines. So I had International Kickboxer, it was. And I was sitting at this computer, just hating life. And I was like, what am I going to do? I was like, I wish there was a place I could just go and train. And and I was that angry with myself, and the computer wouldn't load. So I smacked the computer, and I don't advise that. And there was a magazine on top. It was an international kickboxer, and it fell down side up.
Yeah.
And I was 18, and on the back page it said "Train like a Thai, fight like a Thai."
Oh wow!
And I was like, "What is this?" So I picked it up and I had a look, and there was a page inside, and I opened it up, and it was Fairtex, and I was like, "What is this?" And my stepmom back, we didn't know about travel and everything back then. I'm a country boy, and I called my stepmom, and I said, "Can you help me with this?" And a week later, this country boy was getting off the plane in Thailand.
Oh wow!
And just absolutely fell in love with it. And then my next goal was to go to Brazil and do jiu-jitsu and do all these other different things. But so I saved up a heap of money, and I was like, I'm going to go to Thailand first, and then travel. And I ended up just staying in Thailand for 9 months.
Fair enough.
And then I was with a mate, and we were on the plane home, and we were both miserable, and I was like, I don't want to go home. And he's like, me either. And we're both messaging each other. His mum picked him up. My mum picked me up. We're both on our way back home, and we're still messaging each other. And I was like, have you got any money? And he's like, yeah. He's like, do you still have money? And I was like, yeah. So we went back for another 6 months. And we ended up never going anywhere else. So, now that's on the card. So I think I'll leave on the 15th of June. We're going to Japan. Obviously, I want to do some Japanese jiu-jitsu. And I'd like to do some judo as well.
You're going to go to the Kodokan?
I'd like to, There's a lot of places, And then so we're going to go to the Philippines. Probably do some boxing in the Philippines. Good little boxers.
Maybe some arnis or...
I'd definitely like to. We went to Indonesia not long ago, and I couldn't find any salat. And we went to New Zealand. And I really wanted to do some bow stuff and that, and I couldn't find anywhere that teaches it either. So that was really disappointing. But so I think we're going to go to Korea for a little bit, and maybe to Malaysia. So I'm not sure what Malaysia has.
No, I'm not sure either.
But I'm going to find something. So this is the start of their...
I mean, obviously they probably do have some sort of local fighting style. I'm sure most places do, don't they? Well,
then we're going. So I've got a few big things coming up throughout the year that I have to be here for. We were going to do it in one go, but now we're just going to sort of do continent by continent. So after that, we're going to go into Canada and America. Probably do some boxing. I've got a couple of mates with some gyms there, so I'd like to go there. Of course, I have to go to Gold's Gym for one session. That sort of thing. There's a few places where you have to go, and then we're going to fly into Mexico. I'll probably do some boxing there, something like that. Might want some Valley Tudo, something like that. It'd be pretty cool to go down to Brazil. Because of my injuries and that, I can't do that, but I have to go there and at least do a couple of sessions just to say I've done it, And then we'll head over to the UK, and I've seen a few TikToks lately of the training they do in South Africa. That looks sort of interesting. So we're going to hit there up too. And I'm qualified to teach Krav under Itai Gill. And I did that training in Thailand as well. But I'd love to go to Israel and put in a couple of sessions as well, if my injuries will allow it.
Oh, cool. I saw in Thailand you train with Trainer Gay. He looks like such a character.
He is. He absolutely owned me.
I've started following him actually since I saw you training with him. And it just there's just something about watching somebody who is A, highly skilled, but B, obviously just absolutely loves doing what they're doing. He's just got the biggest smile on his face most of the time, and just when he somebody will be throwing kicks or whatever, and he just does this cheeky little foot sweep and puts them on their back, and he's just like
I got the opportunity to train with him, and I just had to do it. And then originally we had a 2.5 hour session booked, and I just finished training with one of the other guys, and due to my injuries and stuff, I haven't done any real pad work. It's been mostly weights and rehab for the last 3 years. And they said I'd never ever kick again. I'd never lift over 2 kilos again. They told me I'll never work again, all these sorts of things. And I've got myself back to a pretty good level.
Yeah.
But I've got no external rotation, which is why I struggle with BJJ, because, I can't guard properly if anyone pushes my leg down. And then, so I went back, and the first time I was on the pads, and obviously I'm not pad fit, I went to kick, and I did a little run up, and I was like, no. Like this, the trainer's like, just take it slow. And I did another little run up, and he's like, and it was in my head, I could actually see my hip shattering, like when I was trying to do the kick, or me putting my foot down and popping out again, or, I just had all these flashbacks in my head. And eventually I just calmed down. I was kicking sort of straight, like I'd never trained before, like I was kicking a soccer ball, and I started getting a little bit of confidence up and starting to get a little bit of flexibility back. I had been trying to work up to that because I knew I wanted to train, but there's lots of things going on. There's clicking going on. There's like lots of stuff, and I'm worried my back's going to give out. And then I ended up getting through a few sessions, and I did one session a day up until the point, like with different trainers. I was at Fairtex for a little bit, and I was at another couple of gyms as well, just as I was traveling around, looking for a place to set up Complete Health Geelong, Thailand. And then I was like, we're in Bangkok for the last couple of days. We have to train with him. So we booked this 2.5 hour session. And then I was like, I'm going to die. I'm absolutely going to die.
How can you get to 2.5 hours of it?
Yeah. So we ended up rebooking it. And we did an hour. And when we got there was some guys from Russia training for a movie.
Yeah.
And so we sat there watching them train, and within 5 minutes of watching them train, I was like, the smartest decision I've ever made in my whole life was making it back to an hour.
Yeah.
If there was a half an hour option, I might have taken that.
Yeah.
But it was really, really fun, and he made me feel like an absolute beginner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously I haven't really trained martial arts because my injuries in 4 years, and fairly unfit when it comes to that sort of stuff. So, and my flexibility is nothing like it used to be. And in my head, I'm worried that I'm going to break stuff. So it was definitely not where I want to be. It's definitely better than where I was a year ago.
Yeah.
And especially from them saying I'll never, ever do it again. So
totally.
I'll watch the video of me training, and I'm like, I teach this stuff and I look like that. But it doesn't matter, because from where I've come from, just to get to be able to do that again is a massive achievement for me. And that's what I think it's about. And he just owned me, absolutely owned me the whole time. I've never hit the dirt so many times in a session.
He loves it too, doesn't he?
He does. Like you can see his face, like he's taking enjoyment out of beating the shit out of this big flung.
But not maliciously.
No.
He's just like,
So
it's just like he's showing you that you're vulnerable in that position.
Yeah, that's right. Because I've got a really big karate background and Krav background. I tend to kick more karate sort of style. So I lean back a little bit more. I twist really, really far. And I always cover on this side. And I've just done it forever. I don't even remember learning how to do that because I started so early. It's just the way I do it. And Thai's a little bit different. And he taught me why. So a lot more front on, and so when I did the karate style kick, he just punched me square in the guts. He's like, the range different because the direction your hip is is a little bit different. And so he showed me how to do it properly, and then he was swinging and that. But the way he taught me how to do it properly was, he's like, kick, and then he grabbed me, and then he's twisting my heel up like this, and this is of course with the leg with no external rotation on, so I could feel like bands coming up my leg, like they got the snap, and I'm like, oh no. And he's like, and then when you're here, you just twist up the heel and boom, straight on the ground. He's like, and that's why we do it.
I've seen him do that with a few people on some of those clips.
So it was, and a lot of people, might be hard on themselves about, especially when they've taught it for so long, might be like, oh, I should have known better and all this sort of stuff. But you're dealing with somebody who's had 400 fights, who's been coaching, all of their lives, been training since I was 6 years old, all day, every day. Like they're just at another level, They just really are. I remember when I was training at WKO, and there was this little guy there. He was probably, I think he was fighting at 52 kilos, and Oh, I've never like. Oh, I love clinching. I just haven't done enough of it.
Yeah.
And especially not against someone who's had 150 fights. You know, I've been training forever.
Yeah.
But I was like, I'm 120
Mhm.
kilos. I got humbled very, very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, this little 52 kilo guy. I said to him, "Can you show me some clinching?" And their way of showing you is just to do it
Yeah.
instead of explaining it.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to muscle out of it. And
Yeah.
this is before my injuries. And he's just the technique is just I was on the ground, on the ground, on the ground, and the more frustrated I got and tried to put more energy into it, the more times he got me, and the easier he got me down, you know. And I was just like, how is this 52 kilo guy absolutely owning me?
Well, even the big stadiums, don't they? They start the fight nights with little.
Yeah.
They must. Some of them look like they must only be like 7 or 8 years old.
Yeah. So I think they've stopped that now. I think they've brought it up. This fight I saw one day, the kids were, I think they're around 6 to 9 years old. And by then the technique on these kids, you know, are phenomenal already at that age. And I'll never forget it. It's burned into my brain, the image of this kid. Like he was in the corner of the ring, and this other kid just come over with his elbow, split guard, and this other kid just dropped. I'll never forget it. He just crumpled in the ring. But because it was a kid, it had this effect. I was just like, wow, that made me sick to my stomach. I was just like, that shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
It was the whole fight was I was amazed. I'm looking at the technique on these kids, and I was 18, 20 at the time. And I was just like, wow, these kids are amazing. And it was just like, oh, wow, that's not cool. That's not cool at all. No. So I'm pretty sure they've raised the age to like 12 now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose especially if they're using elbows and.
Yeah, it was full rules. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but by the same token, I guess you can fully understand how, as a 20-year-old, they're just so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because they've been doing it since they were 6 or something, or
Yeah, and when I started going to Thailand back then, I remember if you did kickboxing, you were the lowest of the low. Like Thailand's very, you know, they got high so, low so, you know, where you are in the population and how much money you've got. You know, only low people do kickboxing. It's the poor man's sport.
Yeah.
It's all for farmers to try and get their kids to, you know, support their families and that. Thanks to things like One Championship and all this sort of stuff. Like One Championship are doing a fight in a couple of weeks, and it's something like 10 million baht. You know, I remember when I was staying at Fairtex when I was like 20 years old. Some of them were fighting championships for 1,000 baht, which they had to share with the gym. You know, so it was a poor man's sport. But now they've got TV dramas about it and everything.
Yeah.
Like it's becoming really mainstream, and it always amazed me that all the rich Thais all do taekwondo when their national sport is Thai boxing, where we're all paying a fortune. Well, you know,
and Muay Thai, I would argue, is more effective.
Definitely,
But yeah, I was interested. I watched a short documentary actually last night about a guy who was in Thailand fighting Muay Thai, so a Canadian guy, and he ended up and he was only getting $200 a fight to win, and then he went to Myanmar and did left way.
Yeah.
And ended up becoming the world left way.
World
left way champion, and but so the money was abysmal for winning fights in. Yeah.
So he's living there now. They've like made him the ambassador for all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, as on the documentary, when he won the championship, they paid for his wedding.
Yeah, that's right.
And his wedding was televised on national TV. Yeah. 30 million people watching his wedding.
Yeah. So they still do headbutts and stuff over there. Yeah. They still do all that stuff.
Yeah, so they call it the art of 9 limbs.
Yeah.
Because they're headbutting as well. Yeah.
Thais used to have headbutts, but they changed it because it's more of a ring sport now. So like Murray Chaya and, you know, the ancient style. It was much like Japanese jiu-jitsu. It was a complete style in itself. It's got ground fighting. It's got weapons. It's got everything. Yeah. Muay Thai is just the watered down version of it.
It's still pretty brutal for a watered down style.
Yeah, definitely.
Compared to, you know, kickboxing without elbows.
Yeah. But,
cool.
But it is bringing the sport up a lot. Like, so I don't know if I was Thai living in Thailand, that's what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
You know, and then they've got that that game where they kick the little ball. It looks like, it's like volleyball, but it's like you're doing kickboxing at the same time.
Yeah. The skills are crazy.
Crazy, absolutely crazy.
I suppose the kids are playing it from the moment that they can kick something, aren't
they?
Yeah,
that's right.
So obviously you've got plans for Thailand. So what are the plans for Geelong for Complete Health?
Yeah, just to move into a bigger facility. What I'd really love to do, so if there's anybody watching with some skills, I would like to offer all different sorts of martial arts, all different sorts of things. Yeah. As long as they've got like a therapeutic sort of application. I'd love to add a Tai Chi. I'd love to add a Kung Fu, a Sanda, some shoot fighting, some BJJ, just anything that we can bring to, even if it's only one class a week, I just, even like art, music, just sort of anything that's got this creative element to it. I just want it to be like a little hub.
So I guess you definitely will need a bigger space.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So at the moment we're running, what have we got? 3, 6. We're probably running at about 25 classes a week now.
Yeah.
But that's mainly just kickboxing, boxing, weight classes, and some strength and conditioning classes. But I'd really like to just offer everything, even if anybody wants to come in and teach their own class out of there. Yeah. We can work out something cool, just like my guys will be able to train in it. Because I just think everybody should have access to it. And martial arts has been such a big element of my life and a big element of my healing journey.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't for martial arts, I don't know if I'd be in this position now. Well, I definitely wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
No, true. Yeah.
So, and I just think it's one of those things that everybody should do in life.
So does your team do regular support work as well? So they do one-on-one, like daily activity stuff as well?
Yeah. They just go out and help. The majority of our work actually is outside of the gym. Doing that. Everybody thinks we just do gym work now because we do have a gym, but most of our work is just support work outside of the gym. So we do a lot. We've got 3 counselors and they're personal trainers as well. Massive martial arts experience. A lot of our support workers do have big martial arts experience. But that's not what we do. We're a mental health and disability service first. We just have a gym. So if people do want to do that, they do. The way I work things is so we've got the trauma side, so we do the psychology, counseling. So the counseling works through some deep-seated stuff, and then when they're ready and they're getting confident enough to step out, the support workers get them out, and that's out there trying to achieve their goals. Once they start getting out there and start achieving their goals and all that stuff's crossed off, they've got food and shelter and all this sort of stuff covered, and finances and stuff like that, then we'll try and get them into groups. So then they're getting connection, meaning, purpose. So it just works in this cycle of, I never want to say rehabilitation, but just this cycle of healing. And we're all working together for the common goal. And it's when I started my healing journey, I found myself having to do courses everywhere. I found myself having to find information everywhere. There was a lot of searching, and I feel like if I had been able to find all the information in the one spot, life would have been a lot easier. So I'm trying to give the foundation of what I went through myself and correct that. So I'm trying to have all the services under the one roof, without anything being conflicting, and just all the information under the one roof. So I sort of specialize in adverse childhood experiences and trauma, and I just find that it's not talked about enough, and it should be like a gold standard. And I think exercise should be a gold. They just they did a study. It was on Joe Rogan actually the other day. That's how I heard of this study. I can't remember exactly what the figures were, but it was something that they think exercise works nearly like this 80% as good as medication for helping with a lot of medical issues. So I think it should be a foundation of everybody's healing process.
Well, I guess a lot of the physical and potentially some of the mental stuff the root cause could well and truly be a combination of dietary stuff, being sedentary, chemicals, et cetera, et cetera. So if you, hormones, et cetera. So if you get the diet right and hydration right and exercise right and sleep right and the, mental well-being stuff right, it's, it's got to have a massive impact on everything else.
I can't tell you how many times over the last 5 years that somebody's come into the office and have been complaining of anxiety when they've walked in with nearly a whole litre can of V or Red Bull. And I'm like, there's your problem.
What are your cortisol levels going to be like?
I was like, so you're telling me you can't sleep and you're anxious?
Yeah.
I was like, how many of those litre cans of Red Bull do you drink a day?
Well, that was me with coffee. I mean, I'm down to typically 3 a day now, whereas I was having 6 a day coffee a day, and then wondering why I can't sleep. And
and that just has a carry on effect.
And then screens as well. Get people off their phones. Get them off the scrolling.
Well, a lot of people do that, so it's just an addiction like any other addiction. They're trying to. When I was going through my healing phase, that was actually a big problem of mine. I actually couldn't. I was getting into these holes where I was just doing this. I wasn't looking at anything particular. It's just there was too much going on around me that I didn't want to focus on, and I was just getting stuck doing this. And I couldn't stop. So I had to actually go through therapy for like having a little bit of a screen addiction about it, So it had to be I had to limit my times and stuff like that,
it's a big issue, I think. Cool. Well, we've been chatting for a while, so that's great. We'll have to do this again another time.
Definitely can.
Thank you. I'll get this edited and online sometime in the next week or so, and just got to remember how to do it again. Nice to have a chat to you.
Cool. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Cheers.
Cool.